Welcome to No Time Like Joe Time, where we look at media clips that speak truth in our hearts and insomnia in our sleep. I'm your host, Joe Johnson, and each week I have a guest host who helps me deduct all shows that make us happy. I'm very excited for my guest today. He's cool, attractive, and funny, two of the three traits I don't have. So let's welcome Travis Deur. Well, hey there, Travis. I'm so glad you were able to join. I know you've been really busy, so just want to know what have you been up to?
Yeah, I just got back last night. I spent 6 days in the state of Michigan. I'm in school, so I had a lot of classes, and then I had a conference that I stuck around for. So a lot of homework, a lot of work, and life is busy, but very, very good. How about you?
Oh, that's cool. I've been like doing a lot of really cool things lately.
What are some of those things, Joe?
Uh, a lot of stuff. I've been moving around like foot wise, feet moving.
Like like running?
Yes, that's it. I've done a bunch of marathons lately. People say I'm the new Joe Mauer.
Yeah, Joe Mauer, the baseball player, right?
Yeah, I know he's a baseball player. I'm playing baseball in the minor leagues. That's where the comparison has come in, Travis.
Yeah, hey, congratulations, kicking off your minor league career at the ripe old age of 39.
Hey, age is just letters, Travis.
I think that's numbers, Joe.
You can't use numbers to spell. You use letters.
You all right, Joe?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm a little twitchy because I've also started F1 racing. I'm really good at it, but it's really fast.
Joe, I'm starting to wonder if any of this is true.
Unbelievable. When I was mountain climbing with Arnold Schwarzenegger, I told him that nobody would believe this was real, which is why I have a video proving everything I just said is real. Take a look. Who? I am running very fast. Oh, look, a play is coming to me. I will jump and catch it. I am succeeding. Yeah. Me. I've started playing drums. I'm good. Vroom, vroom, NASCAR. Wow, I'm Joe Johnson, and I can't believe I'm climbing this mountain with you, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, you are doing very good, Joe. I will tell everybody this is absolutely true. Good work, yeah, you're doing the best.
That's good, Joe. Any particular reason why you chose My Little Girl for the soundtrack?
That that was the only song I could get that was royalty free.
Yeah, hey, good for you. You know I like you no matter what, right, Joe?
Really?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, well, thanks, man. I got to be honest. That video was fake. I know it's hard to believe, but that's the power of editing.
Yeah, you don't need to lie to impress me or anybody else, Joe. You're a good dude. Just be yourself.
Hey, thanks, man. You're right. I needed to hear that. No more lies. No more like talking myself up. Sorry, I got a phone call. Oh, hey, Andy, how's it going? Not too bad. Nope, not performing surgery today. I'm actually recording a podcast with Brad Pitt. Shut up. Okay, of openings, I think this might be top three most ridiculous bid opening. So thanks for. I never asked the people like, how do you feel about being part of these? I just like, here, read it. You're gonna do it. It'll be great.
The Oscar for editing goes to Joe Johnson. We can share the one on acting, right?
Yes. Well, in all sincerity, thank you for being here. You really are top cool guys I know, and you're one of the cool guys who you're cool by not trying to be cool.
Mm.
Like there's people who they put on the aviators and like they have the stylish look, and you're like, this guy's cool. And then there's people like us who we don't need that stuff. We just are.
That's right. I haven't worn aviators since this morning on the way in. So.
I always remember the moment I was like, Travis is really good at connecting. And it was, we were having a trunk or treat, which for those who don't know, it's where like a bunch of cars have like they'll have a setup in their car. Kids come around, do trick or treat. And we did this at our church, Faith Christian Reformed Church in New Brighton. And we had a car set up, and I was kind of watching you, and you were just like, this was an event for the community, and you would just go up, you'd hone in on something that somebody was interested, or you would see like a shirt, like, oh, they went to this college, and you managed to connect with them. And I just was like, damn, this guy's got a gift.
Yeah, no, love people, love getting to know people. That was part of a previous professional life where they threw you in a room with 30 people you'd never met before, and you found the connection. So I think you
Yeah.
just need to be genuinely interested in people, whether they're F1 racing, mountain climbing with celebrities, or just normal guys. I'm cool with them.
Have you as like somebody who connects with people, is it ever, because you meet probably people from all over the walks of life, do you ever find people who either you kind of feel like, I don't want to say, like, I've talked to people, I'm like, they've done 10 times more than I've ever done or ever will do, and I have to guard myself of hyping myself up. But then I meet somebody else who I feel like I've done more, and I have to guard myself of being like prideful. Was that ever a challenge for you one way or the other?
Yeah, I think I'm happy for other people that have done good stuff, right? And if that's them, great. If I've got a story to share, great. I was an intern in college at an NBC station.
Mm-hmm.
And there was another intern there from the college, and we got into this situation where all of a sudden I'm one-upping him and he's one-upping me. And like in my mind, finally, I'm like, you win, man. It's like, this is not that important to me. Good for you. Good for me. Let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I don't think I've been, I think it's the second one. Like if somebody is for whatever reason impressed with me, I kind of want to be like, yeah, you should be impressed with me because, and I've learned over time that I don't need to do that. Like I've actually found more joy, and I think you were kind of alluding to this, just to kind of celebrate with other people what they've done. Actually, my favorite thing to do. So one of my companies I used to work at, Foxtrot Marketing, the CEO and the head of sales, they were just like forces of nature. They would win all kinds of major awards. And so like my CEO won 40 under 40, which is like, I don't remember if I want to say it's a national recognition, but at least a state recognition. But of the 40 like most prominent female entrepreneurs. And so she made it on the list. And I went to her and I'm like, hey, Jill, congratulations on winning that award. Not to brag, but I did beat the Ender Dragon on Minecraft. And that's actually pretty hard. So it's, and just like the dumbest thing to brag about. So I always had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, I did have somebody once. I discovered that I tend to deflect any comments that come at me. I had someone ask me very directly. It was one of the youth group moms, and she said, "Can I give you a compliment, or does that make you feel uncomfortable?" And I
Yeah.
had never thought about it before, and realized like I do tend to deflect. And now my natural reaction, whether it's compliment or criticism, is just to thank people for
Yes.
sharing their thoughts. And if I need to go digest that, figure that out, somewhere else later, I can do that. But yeah, I think if people want to give you a compliment, thank you. If people want to offer a critique, right, thank them for that too, and just be open to it.
Yeah, definitely. My magic trick that I found, I learned this from a mentor of mine. Whenever he got complimented, his response was always, "Ah, shucks, thanks." And I like that. I don't know what it is. It like you get to play bashful, then you accept it. So it's perfect. And so I usually try to relate kind of our opening bits with kind of what our clips are about. And I kind of did this because, I was clearly not telling the truth. And I think truth is always a very interesting concept because it, like, especially now, it's kind of like, what is truth? And it reminds me of this Community episode. So what is your history with Community? Like, what's your experience with it?
Yeah, I don't remember who. I had a friend that kept prompting me to watch that one. And when times were a little slower, maybe it was over the summer, it hasn't been too long, where I'm the guy that watches every episode of a show or no episodes of the show. So started watching that one and just zoomed through the whole thing. Don't know how long it took me, but it was brand new to me. I know it's not a super new show. I know they've got a movie coming up sooner than later here.
Oh,
Just kind of blitz through the whole thing.
I did not realize that. That's awesome.
We'll go
Very
see it
cool.
together.
Yeah, I'd love that. I kind of similar, like we came in when it was like on season 4 or 5, and we actually started watching it when our oldest son Jack was in the hospital. And it was I think it was such a good like break from reality that we just got so hooked on it. So it was like all this exhausting days, and then I just be like, I can't wait for tonight to go watch Community. So I've been starting to watch it again when one of the shows you mentioned was Community. I'm like, oh, I like that one. So yeah, in this first clip, Jeff is talking with the counselor of the school, and they're kind of having this discussion about the counselor maybe could get some answers for a test for Jeff. And we'll just play the clip for the setup.
It was possible to get those test answers. Suppose I was to say to you, it was possible to get those test answers.
I would say go for that. Anne could have said so in a text.
I'm asking you if you know the difference between right and wrong.
I discovered at a very early age that if I talk long enough, I could make anything right or wrong. So either I'm God or truth is relative. And in either case, booyah.
Oh, interesting. It's just the average person has a much harder time saying booyah to moral relativism.
Do you know any lawyers?
Do I know any lawyers? Yes, I do. Don't have a lot of close relationships with them right now, but
Yeah.
have in the past. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if I've met a lot, but I get stuck on this. Either I am God or truth is relative, because I think everybody would laugh and say the second one. Somehow, I don't know. There's something about that first one where I'm like, I think people might think that unintentionally, because I find myself like, I like that it was about a test, because I hate to say it, I could see myself in my college years finding a reason to think it was okay. Like, I'm really busy, I know this stuff, it's going to be good in the long run if I can just get through this. This isn't normal action. So I'm like, I kind of get it. But I find it's really easy for me to make the lines of what I think is true and then kind of set everybody else to that standard, which is kind of like playing God.
Yeah, and Jeff in the show definitely thinks he's heads and tails above everybody else, right? For people that haven't seen it, I think the context is he had a law degree from Columbia,
Yes.
which being an online scam from the country of Columbia. And then he had to go back and legitimize his degree. But yeah, from the beginning of the show, right? He's the smartest guy in the room. He's the one that everybody should be catering towards. So yeah, and his comment too on truth being a relative thing. Um, Man, I was thinking about that. It depends on the context that you're coming from, right? What's
Mm.
your background? What's even some of the classes that I'm in now, you go to a different culture and you think, oh, they should be more like us. And the question is, should they, right? Is your way always better?
Hmm.
Is your way always 100% correct, right? Maybe there's
Yeah.
some value in somebody else's perspective. I'm not the type of guy to always argue and try to be right about everything. I'm really happy to engage in conversations, and if you've got a different opinion than me, like
Mm.
let's let's chat it out. Hopefully we can both walk away from that conversation and learn something, be a little smarter, think about something we haven't thought about before. Um, I don't know, man. You're cheating on tests though. I'm a little worried there.
How do you think
Former
I've
teacher.
gotten? How do you think how do you think I've gotten as far as I am, baby?
Uh,
One thing I was thinking about when you were talking about it is I think I do believe in dual realities in the sense of if you took somebody from like Alaska and somebody from like southern Texas and you put them put them together on the 60-degree day, one of them's going to say it's chilly, one of them's going to say it's really nice and warm. Both are true, but also both contradict each other. And so that's always something that's kind of helpful. That's helped me through different things. Like we've let the cat out of the bag that like I think we did. I don't know if I've officially said you're a pastor, but there it is now. Of like sometimes things get a little tricky with the church, and it helps to me remember like, you can have grace, but also have truth at the same time. And sometimes that feels like it might contradict a little bit, but it's just coming from two different angles.
Yeah, and you and I have had those conversations, and that's interesting for two different reasons. First of all, my truth comes from somewhere specific, within the church, and that's your context too. But we even have conversations within the church about what is true, and can some of what you and I both say, if we are not in full agreement, have some truth to it? So, I mean, that's part of what church and faith is, not saying I understand all the truth completely 100% done over, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to continue to try to seek the truth. And if you can say something that's different than what I believe and that can inform my opinion, we may come into a conversation on different sides of an issue. We may walk out of that conversation still on our sides of that
Mm-hmm.
issue, but maybe have a better understanding of where the other person is coming from.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like that. I think that we I did a Ted Lasso episode with somebody a week or two ago, and it was about being curious.
Mm.
And so that kind of reminds me that be curious, not judgmental. And
Yeah.
one thing I always think about too, that I love thinking like I'll watch show like this is genuinely my take when I'm watching these shows. I'll see a clip like this and I'll start analyzing it in my head and be like, yeah, like if he talks long enough, he can make anything true. And for some stuff, it's like pretty like with this cheating on a test, most people would say it's wrong. And I feel like there's some things we're pretty quick, like kidnapping. I think we're all pretty quick to be like, no, that's wrong. But I kind of wonder like at where the like frog in the boiling water does something change where like there's a huge hate towards the Asian community right now, and obviously some people think that's okay. How do you wrestle with that idea of if sometimes letting truth be relative can become dangerous?
And sometimes truth goes down one path, or your truth, until you flip the tables on
Mm,
whatever and all of a sudden you're doing it to me and it's not okay,
yeah.
right? I like the word you use, curious, though, because that's been a word for me the last couple of years, going through some transitional stuff and all of that. And even what you talked about before, meeting people that you've never met before and just being curious about what their story is.
Yeah.
Uh, if if your stance is different than mine on fill in the blank, whatever that is, do I start putting up walls? Do I start making assumptions about you? Or do I get curious and start asking questions?
Yeah.
Your life experience is different than mine. Even somebody's faith or religion could be different than mine, or maybe that's not a part of who they are.
Yeah.
But I want, what shapes your opinion. I want to know where commonality is. Where can we find some ground that we can stand on together, so we can understand that you're on side A, I'm side B, whatever it is, and see if we can live together on that. And maybe we don't agree, but we can still, live together in some semblance of I shouldn't say community. That's the thing of the that's
Yeah.
the same. But we could still be in some sort of community together, some sort of
Right.
fellowship, sort of relationship, and say, hey, me and Joe don't agree on this, but there's plenty that we have in common. We may continue to debate on some things that we feel strongly about that are on different sides,
Mhm.
but at the end of the day, I love him as a person, and we maybe just are never going to see eye to eye on that.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of add on to that, I think those are all really, really good points. I think about like the curiosity. I've told this several times on this podcast already, and I'm probably going to tell it several more times, but it's just something that sticks with me. So growing up, I watched The Simpsons from like day one, like when I was like 6 years old when it first debuted. And like when it first came out, it was like controversial. A lot of people were like, no. And I was like one of the few people in our church growing up who watched it. And I'd get a lot of like, not terrible grief, but just like, you watch that show. And part of the reason I love this show is growing up, my dad was a construction worker. So he had weeks he was working 80 hours a week. And that's going to get anybody in a grumpy mode. And him and I kind of had a strained relationship growing up, but when we watched The Simpsons together, it was this bond I felt. So it wasn't just about watching The Simpsons, it was watching The Simpsons with my dad. And it's because of him that it's still my favorite show to this day. Because when I watch it, I remember us quoting those lines together and laughing through it. So there's, just that curiosity is such a powerful thing.
Yeah, that's interesting that you said that. I think we watched an episode of Simpsons while we were at Grandma's house, and Bart said something my dad didn't like, and that was it for Simpsons. I'm thinking as you say that, though, people that have different opinions on a television show and what's appropriate for whomever
Yeah.
to be. I've had a few of those scenarios where someone recommends something to me, and I told you at the beginning, I either watch them all or I watch none of them, right?
Yeah.
And I've gotten a few episodes in, I feel like I'm committed to the long haul, and you're like, oh, is this the kind of thing that I want to be putting in my brain? And I had a little conversation with a friend of mine not long ago where I said, yeah, that show was that was more than I could handle from a
Yeah.
language perspective. And I decided like, no, can't do that. He's like, oh, I've watched that show 3 times. I love it. And I'm like, yeah, I love the storyline and the content. There was
Yeah.
just something that rubbed me in a way that wasn't going to work. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, it just reminded me, I don't know why it reminded me of this, like what's acceptable for one person may not be acceptable for another person. It's really funny. I had this a friend of mine who was married. I was talking to him and his wife, and they were kind of talking about how they thought they were a good kid in high school, but they thought the other one was the trouble one. And I was like, well, why? What's the case for and against? So my buddy was like, well, I was really respectful. I was really like polite to people, treated everybody well. But I went out and partied, drank, smoked some stuff, but I was respectful. That was his definition of like, hey, I'm a good kid because I'm respectful. His wife on the other hand, was like, I never went out and partied. I studied all the time. Yeah. Was I sometimes rude to adults? Yeah. I spoke my mind. But they both saw the other trait as like, no, you were really rude to adults. That's not okay. And the other one, like, yeah, but you went out and drank. That's not okay. So just interesting of that perspective.
Yeah, and I have a book on my shelf. I'll say on my shelf because I haven't read all of it yet. But it talked about, and it sounds like your friends there, they valued the same thing, but they defined it in a different way, right? So
Yeah.
that's a different argument. Like, I thought it was a good thing to be a good person, and when I define good person, here's what that means. And on the
Yeah.
other side, when I define being a good person, it's a different set of, boxes that you need to check there. So yeah, they're on the same page, but not on the same page. So those
Yeah.
are always debates as well.
Yeah, definitely. And so, and I like what you said, like, and I've heard this a lot, and I think it's really cool how sometimes, and I've come to believe this too, like sometimes conflict can stem from something flattering. Like if I'm upset that a friend, like last minute, we were going to hang out, and last minute they're like, oh, I can't come. I'm frustrated, but I'm frustrated because I can't hang out with them. Comes from a good place. And I think it's like both my friends, their goal was to be a good person. They wanted that. It's a kind of that universal thing that maybe brings us together. And you've talked a lot about this, about finding the commonality. So it kind of reminds me of another clip of Community where Jeff finds a simple solution to kind of help a conflict. So kind of a setup for this. So there's Troy and Abed. They're best friends. They're often probably one of my favorite parts of Community. And they're kind of in this argument. Well, earlier in the episode, he quickly just last second was like, here, I have friendship hats. Now you guys don't have to fight. And he puts the invisible hats on each one of them, and they both like just take it off, and they're in the dean's office. And so the episode kind of goes along, and they're having conflict, and it's kind of towards the wrap up. And this is kind of just what unfolds from there.
Yes, yes, and I will roll my eyes at both of you when I put them on your heads.
Ugh.
Because that's the way I am. Unless you use those magical friendship hats. Each other with pillows forever?
Knowing that doesn't feel like enough anymore. Yeah, we're grown-ups now. We have grown-up problems.
That's very clear. Unless you use those magical friendship hats that I got for you.
We're not stupid, Jeffrey. We know you made those sarcastically.
Yes, yes, and I will roll my eyes at both of you when I put them on your heads. Because that's the way I am. But that's not the way you have to be.
We might be interested.
Okay, then. Here's your magical friendship hat. And
Jeff.
what?
You left the magical friendship hats at the dean's office?
Right. Of course. I'll go get them.
So Jeff went out, and he stayed out long enough to make them believe he had gone back to the office. It was a nice touch.
Here you go. Lucky no one grabbed him, huh?
Britta Perry is there to immortalize the moment on film. Accidentally, while trying to get a picture of the light hitting a stack of nearby waffles.
Pierce, take that off.
I can't hear you. Your cheeks are in the way.
First entry in my stupid journal. Today, I had to run and get 2 imaginary friendship hats from an office. I could have just walked around the corner and then come back, but for some reason, I actually went all the way back to where they were supposed to be. One was crumpled up a bit, that was Troy's. The other was just a little dusty, that was Abed's. I fixed them up, even though I was the only one watching. Because I settled on a truth today that's always going to be true. I would do anything for my friends.
Oh, I like that clip so much.
Yeah, first we got to recognize Troy and Abed, one of the greatest friendships in the history of television. They have some great moments on Community.
Yes, yes, definitely. And part of the reason I want to do this is to expose people to new shows. So if you haven't watched Community, gotta go check it out. It's awesome. Yeah, I love that they're both kind of already in sync. When Jeff puts the hats on, like they both have that look like, Jeff, come on. They both know. And I I don't know, I think it shows character growth, and it's so sweet that Jeff actually goes to the dean's office. Like he doesn't, I mean, he says he actually went to the dean's office, but he doesn't just go to the dean's office. He goes and picks them up. And I I just love the end. It's like the truth I discovered is I'll do anything for my friends. And I think that's kind of, when in doubt, what, if I'm not sure exactly what the truth is, that's kind of where I want it to guide me to, like, this loving place.
Yeah.
I do things for the better. And I think this was just such a sweet example of that.
Yeah, and we talked about that before. True friendships there at the beginning of the series, they're just a means to an end, right? And then as he does grow to care about them. Yeah, and he found I didn't go back and watch the whole episode. Looked like it might have been one of the Pillow Fort episodes.
Yes.
Where he's taking two people that are in conflict and he's trying to find that commonality. And I'll say this too, like that's what I tend to do. I've been learning, and through one of the classes that I'm in right now, that is my my tendency is to look for same amongst people. But also you need to stretch and you need to identify that there are people that are different for whatever reason, cultural issues, belief issues, whatever it may be. And you need to be able to respect the difference and maybe celebrate the difference and not just always look for that commonality. Life would be pretty boring if we were all Jeffs. It'd be awesome if we were all Troy and Abbots, but
Yeah.
everybody was the same. If every character in a show is the same, right? There's no story there.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. And I think we love that from our shows, but I think it's, especially in today's world, I think it's really easy to surround yourself with people who think and act like you.
Yeah.
And there's times where that's helpful to kind of get some rest, but also I've come to really like those differences and getting different perspectives that I would never have heard before. And I always, this is just my own personal theory. I don't know if there's any validation to this, but sometimes I wonder if people have this tension of like I'm just going to think of something silly. I think Dr. Pepper is the greatest soda in history. And anybody who says differently, I don't even have the time of day for you. I always wonder, is part of that fear that they don't want to find out there's a possibility there is a different drink? Or are they just so set they're like, I'm not going to waste my time? But I always think about, so there's this, I listened to this guy come on, and it was on like a fringe channel, and he was talking about Roswell, I think the famous like 50s alien ship crash. And this guy was he was a very respected UFO enthusiast in the community, but he talked about how he did not think that was a UFO sighting. He think there was actually a really logical explanation, and he presented it. And he was like, I think a lot of people are scared if we find out this wasn't extraterrestrial, they'll think we have no case, but there's all these other things that happen. So for me, it's always like, I may have this truth, Dr. Pepper's good. There might be these other things that factor, like, oh, hey, a lot of people really like Pepsi. Well, that doesn't have to change my truth. I still really like Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, and at the same time, read a book in recent years. It's like you should celebrate the day that you found out you were wrong about something because
Ah,
you're smarter than you were when you woke up that morning, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe not as life altering as Dr. Pepper and Pepsi. I was a Pepsi guy, by the way.
Me too.
But like if you introduced me to something that and you said it there, right? Like I don't want to be wrong. I don't want somebody to put something in front of me that changes my mind because then I look like I'm weak, right? Because I changed my mind. It's like we're allowed to grow as people. We're allowed to
Yeah,
discover new things. We're allowed to believe something or think something for a long time and be able to tweak that or find something different. Go, oh, you know what? I was wrong. And
yeah.
one of the books that I give to a lot of our graduates, it's a Donald Miller book. It's like 1,000 miles in a million years. There's distance and numbers involved there. I don't remember exactly what the title is, but he says, we love drama in a sitcom. We love drama in a movie. We love drama in a book. We love slow character development, and then we don't want any of that for ourselves, right? We just
Ah,
figured out. We want life to be easy. It's like, embrace your story.
wow. Yeah, that's really good. I like that. And that is so true. And yeah, because we look at, well, that's funny. I was just kind of thinking about how, if this was like early season Community, Jeff would not have done that. He would have been like, this is dumb, not wasting my time. But now it's later on, and he does this remarkable kind gesture with nobody looking. And that, like, we look at them, we're like, that's great character development. And I think you're right. Like, we don't always allow that for ourselves, and we don't always allow other people to have character development.
Yeah, good point. We don't allow for others what we expect for ourselves, or that we would want for ourselves. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's one thing I hope too is I think I feel like TV shows, I often use clips like this to make a point on something because it's so non-threatening. Like you're more interested in the show, and then when I'm like, oh, it's kind of like this episode, and then bring it and kind of compare it to reality, then everybody's already in it and like, oh. And so my hope is always like when people listen to this, like people who are on different sides of all kinds of issues are like, well, we both do like Community, or we both do like Scrubs or The Simpsons, that there's this one little thing we can connect on. And that's easy to talk about because I don't think any of us would have a problem if we had different perspectives on one of these clips. And I don't think we would either. I would be like, what? You don't see it that way? Travis, you're out. Like, we'd be okay. And I think that's a good way to lead into more deeper issues.
Yeah, I think he says in the first clip, like talk until he's right,
Mm-hmm.
right? But what if we listened until we were right?
Oh man, yeah.
How about that, man?
Ah, that's a good one. That's a mic drop.
Yeah, I'm out.
Yeah. I was gonna say if I had better editing skill, I do the thing where the like digital sunglasses come over your eyes.
Aviators.
Yes. We'll see what editing Joe can do. But yeah, no, I think that's really cool. And yeah, I think this has kind of turned more into not just truth, but about like accepting other truths with other people and learning how to embrace that not everything is clear cut. Before we start moving to wrap up, is there anything else you want to cover?
No, I think it's good, and I like what you're doing there, right? Using cultural stuff to spur a conversation. And I've seen that in different spaces in my life recently where there's a lot of butting heads between people that have different opinions. And sometimes when you come into the argument with all the right answers, you've already got your ears closed to whatever somebody might say. You're not willing to learn something. You're not willing to tweak, something for yourself personally that
Yeah.
maybe maybe you know the truth, but you could know it better, right? Or understand it better. And you mentioned some of the church related stuff earlier too. Even folks within the same church can have different perspectives on what that means to them, right? And how that informs what their opinions are and how they want to move. And man, life would be kind of boring if we hung out with people that were exactly the same as we are. And I want to stretch and I want to grow and I want that for whoever I happen to be talking to also. So just keep listening, keep talking, not talking over each other, right? Is maybe we can both grow to being better informed at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. And this is why I made this, because it kind of reminds me of a Simpsons episode where Bart, they go to this like self-help seminar, and the guy brings Bart on because he's like so carefree, and he's like, we all need to be like the boy. And so everybody starts acting like Bart, and he hates it. And Lisa's like, well, you've lost your sense of individualism. And then it also ends up leading to catastrophe as everybody, it's kind of like, do what you feel. Like there's a great line that they have this annual, or not an annual, they have this get together that do what you want fair, which is more popular than last year's theme, do what we tell you to. But basically people were like, oh, I didn't feel like oiling the Ferris wheel, or I didn't feel like making sure those bleachers were tight, and everything like collapses. So it's just like we need those different personalities.
Yeah, for sure.
So I always ask everybody 3 questions. And I kind of feel like this might be a little unfair with the 2 clips we used, but that's all right. First question, excuse me, is which clip did you enjoy more?
Yeah, I think I jumped on the first one a little more than the second one. Liked them both and appreciated both of them. But that whole, the professor or the counselor at the end starts talking about moral relativism, right? I think you could go deep and deep and deep for a long time on that question. Like what informs where my opinions and my truths and my beliefs come from, and is that negotiable, and is there any common ground that we can find, and are there things that have to be a yes or have to be a no for everybody, no questions asked, right? Can we get to that point? And then there's just so much to explore there, right? With the differences in cultures or where you grew up or what you believe. And man, you could go forever on that kind of question.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think no, that's a really good point. You almost swayed me, but I like the second one a little bit more, just because it was very heartwarming for me, and I like that sense of feel stuff.
And I'll send you a magic friendship hat.
Yes, love it. Just an empty box. Like Rachel's there, and she's like, "What? It's beautiful."
It's arrived.
The second question is, which clip did you feel like we got more conversation out of?
Yeah, really a little bit of both. Felt it was kind of balanced there. And I appreciate what you talked about too, with the character development of a character like Jeff. Early series, later series, this situation, that situation. That's what you want to see, right? That's why it is heartwarming, because you knew who Jeff was at the beginning of the series. And I like the character too that says, he even stepped outside and pretended like he went back to the office, and then you see the security footages. It's like, no, he did, and he's fixing the invisible.
Yeah.
That was really cool. So yeah, maybe the first one more on an intellectual debate deep dive, and the second one really on more of the heartwarming aspect of it. And you need that kind of balance in a show, and I guess that kind of fits with the conversation we're having too, right? Is get into the nuts and bolts of the conversation, but love people and want what's best for people, and show a little grace and a little heart when you're having those types of deep conversations too.
Yes, absolutely. Well said. I couldn't agree more with you. I think the first one probably I guess it depended on the day. Right now I'm like, felt like I got more out of the first one because there's a rabbit hole you could go down on like where, I'm going to stay out of the rabbit hole, but there's just so many aspects of daily life and truth you can get out of. So I agree. Final question is, if you had to pick one of these two clips to do just a deep dive in, and we had to like dissect every aspect of it, which clip would you do?
Yeah, probably defaulting to the first one. We can
Yeah.
disagree on that and debate it. That'll give us something.
I think the only reason I like to do the second one is so we can talk about the fact that the picture was immortalized by accidentally taking a picture of waffles.
And as they're in the midst of doing their secret handshake, which my son and I do, and he's never seen an episode. Like I binged through it, and I'm like, hey, we got a new handshake, and he just rolls with it, and it's great. If the deep dive is just us going down the Tronabe rabbit hole, then you can sway me easily. I'd happily go through that again. Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. So kind of to like finish this up, usually what I'll tell people if people are listening to this episode, because we're putting it on YouTube and it's going to be a podcast too, but if people are like, dang, this Travis guy is cool, you can always leave a comment for us. Otherwise, you do go to Faith Christian Reformed Church, which is in New Brighton, Minnesota. So if you guys are in that area and you're looking for, some community, go check out that place. You can find Travis there. If anybody was like, this guy's sure cool, any other suggestions for how to find you, or does that cover everything?
Yeah, my email address is on the website, and I love talking ministry for folks that are in that or are church people, and I'm happy to talk over chicken fingers or coffee or whatever else too. And I just you mentioned that at the beginning. I just love connecting with people, love having conversations, love hearing about what makes you the same as me and what makes you different than me, and I'm open to all that.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I appreciate about you so much, and why I was so happy to have you on is, Travis is a great person to talk to. Like I've talked to him about like, hey, I'm having frustrations and I don't get the situation, and always felt very welcome and open to have those thoughts. So you do great at that. So Faith is very lucky to have you, and very happy that you agreed to come on and do this. It means a lot to me, really does. So thank you so much for being here, Travis. And for everybody else, we'll see you next time.
And for the record, I think Joe is cool, attractive, and funny. All three of those things. You get
yes. And here's your Vimo payment. Thank you.